right, Alex. It's a blessing and an honor to be with you. How are you, for starters? How's life?
Life is, wow, it's so rich, and thank you. It's an honor to be here, Stuart, truly. Life is full in that I am learning and growing perhaps more than ever right now, and finding deep curiosity in the human journey. It's quite an epic, epic experience being human.
Oh yeah, what are you finding right now?
Lots of humility.
Good.
And really focusing my practice towards gratitude, really sitting with the parts of myself that need some pretty tender care. Just to dive right on in, I would say I'm quite in touch with parts of my being that need some care as far as trauma recovery, and really going down deep into some of the earlier, deeper patterns of my nervous system to really kind of, for me, pioneer ways to shift longstanding habits that just are really not serving me or love or my ability to be of service in the world. So that's, I'm grateful to be doing this deep exploration. Life has brought me some incredible opportunities to really crack open at a level I didn't even thought was possible. So I'm in the process of that. Yeah. It's quite a journey.
And what are your methods right now? What are your practices?
Lots of breath work, lots of singing, lots of yoga, lots of finding deep, trustful connections with other humans where I can really dive deep with them. Certainly exploring my connection with nature in a deeper way, and doing somatic integration work with people that really understand how to really encourage the mind-body connection in a deeper way than I, again, thought was possible. And I've had my journeys with shamanic techniques and plant medicine, and I invited Iboga into my life earlier this year, which is an African plant medicine, and that was really an incredible journey of awakening to my mind-body connection and how much information is stored in my abdomen and my gut, and how much that just getting to know my intestines and my organs from a place of awareness really helped turn on a lot of circuits in my brain. So just diving in all areas right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you for sharing, for starters. And I found I had a deep dive with a lot of shamanic practices and plant medicine, and I found, as expansive as it was and mind-opening and heart-opening and multidimensional, I found it took its toll on my nervous system, and I needed to kind of back away from it for a bit to integrate and to let the nervous system kind of almost like to let the body and everything catch up with what had happened. That's what it felt like for me. And I think I'm observing a little bit of that in the community as these plant medicines get more and more kind of mainstreamed, I guess. It's becoming really accessible, which is beautiful. But I think I'm seeing quite a few people get kind of bottoming out with it, like literally, figuratively, and in all kinds of ways. And it seems that kind of ebb and flow of like going deep and then letting everything catch up and recalibrate and meet that, because it's such a indescribable frequency, a wattage that we just tend to not experience in this dimensionality. It's so interesting. I find it an incredible time for that exploration.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Perhaps the challenge, and from what I understand about the nature of these plant medicines, is they're really shared in the context of village and community, where integration is a very different experience of being able to immediately share and also be witnessed within the context of your community, the journey that you've gone on. And for us in the West, because we're so isolated from that, and we may belong to some sort of cultural identity that feels like community, but is it really a place where the deep transparency of our journey can be witnessed day after day, and we can sort of integrate in that? And there's certainly a desire to find belonging in the culture of plant medicine and what that means. For me, I've been very selective about when and where I go into that realm. And with the Iboga, it was a one-time drop in, and right away there was like, okay, it's going to take a while for me to really work with this and integrate the learning of it, and do that in a way where, where my nervous system can catch up to the experience. And in that, for me, a lot of the ground zero work right now is, what does it take to revillage in our culture? What does revillaging even look like when we're in an economic and social system that is essentially fragmented away from a daily reality of belonging? And we have to work so hard just to get into a place where we can feel seen and open and, safe, and that our resources are being shared. And to me, there's such a deep parallel in the need for healing, personal individual healing, and what it looks like to actually work towards belonging, in a sense of what a quote unquote village might feel like.
Are you seeing hope in that revillaging? I haven't heard that term, actually. I like that.
I personally am quite careful about the generating of hope, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I feel like there is such, there's perhaps one of my favorite teachers in that is Pema Chodron, of really allowing there to be a place in between being free of hope and despair.
Yeah.
And, the attachment to the outcome of any effort versus the sort of other version of attachment, which takes us into that negative headspace of what might come from a fearful way of looking at things. And in that, the reality is that we are in such a dire state of debt with regards to what we've collectively gotten to in the realm of isolation and our planet breaking down, and all the things. When you look at all of them with a certain amount of openness, that for me is part of the humility, is what I personally find is grief, and then action, and rest, hopefully in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That just doing the next right thing is all that I can do as a human being in response to what I'm seeing. And the work, honestly, of revillaging, what it's shown me is that people have forgotten how to really trust each other at a deep level. And the trusting has been so affected by thousands of years of trauma through patriarchy, honestly, to go kind of straight into that. Not to blame the man, but here we are as two men, knowing what we inherit in our culture. Perhaps I could maybe just assume that you've perhaps gone into your own deep dives around what it means to be a man right now.
Totally.
And and in that, the deeper place of trust, how do, when we start looking at rebuilding that with each other, a lot of cultural discomfort starts to rise up, and we see the places where we don't see eye to eye, and where we're hurt in ways that we inherited that hurt. And it doesn't even have to do with our lifetime. Maybe it's been reinforced by specific traumas in our life, but it's something that's been handed down. And so we're taking a turn to look at all of that. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And I do see that it's necessary. I think if humans are to thrive on this planet, we need each other more than ever. And we need to learn how to live together in sustainable ways that don't rely on a massively overarching system to hold us all up. And that there is certainly a path that I've seen that provides me with a sense of like, oh yeah, that's how I want to live in this lifetime, is in a functional village. But I think that what that requires is a deep healing of human intimacy and our connection to water and our connection to land and our connection to energy. And those are pretty deeply wounded things when we really start to look at them. So.
Yeah, beautifully put. It's so powerful. And we're in such an interesting time where that deep work of revillaging is happening more and more. Like everywhere I look, it's happening. Yet this other movement that seems to be so seductive of the technology, the distractions, the kind of numbing out to the endless array of distractions. It's like that is so seductive, yet we've got a choice to really dive deep in this potent time that we're in. And I see that in myself as well, that kind of moment-to-moment choice. Could either numb out to the endless array of just scrolling to just distract from what's really going on, or pay deeper attention. And that seems to be a common predicament that I think as we continue down this route of just the mystery of the technology, that discernment is really going to be important, that daily practice of discerning when to turn the fucking phone off and when to pay some deeper attention and when to go off into the jungle or the desert and take a vision quest or a medicine journey, or really make those conscious choices to step up in this current time, you know?
Yeah, and the question for me has been, there's a bandwidth of discomfort that I think lands somewhere between too comfortable and over the top, unmanageable levels of pain and suffering. And somewhere in there, actually, that's where life can really thrive. And the challenge is that the technology can be a very comforting factor, but it also delays the inevitable discomfort of having to wake up to what's actually going on. And, in my personal journey, discomfort and pain and suffering have been one of the core catalysts to finding another way of being, to stepping away from the grid and looking at how do I create authentic joy and also be able to feel grief and not have this sort of apathetic, colorless reality in between. And what are the things that I need to really resource myself? My sense with culture at large is that it will just become so uncomfortable at some point to live the human existence that people will genuinely have the opportunity to become machines, or they will return to humans. And that might be some sort of existential split in how we decide our future. But for me, the value of being human has never been more real. Like I know what it's like to feel like a machine. I don't particularly find it fulfilling. And I like knowing that I have an end, and that in that I have this lifetime to be grateful for, and whatever is beyond that is part of the great mystery. And I think that part of the human journey needs to be rediscovered because it's what keeps us human. Whereas the machine world offers something visibly eternal and yet very shallow in comparison to the richness of what it means to be born and live and die.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel the same way. Yet I also recall when smartphones first started coming onto the experience, and I was one of those people that was holding on to the old phone. I'm never going to get a smartphone. Never going to get. I don't want to complicate things. I want to keep it simple. I've got my phone to make phone calls. That's it. And then all of a sudden, everyone's got them. And now I've got it. And it's so useful and it's great. I can't help but think it'll be kind of similar. I'd hope I'd still have that discernment of like, nah, I like being human. It's great. But then all of a sudden, everyone's becoming computers and robots and getting these chips in their head or whatever is getting developed, it gets, I can't help but think it'll become normalized and everyone's doing it.
Sure. Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting. Like, will we have re-villaged enough to be able to have communities that can actually make intelligent choice? What do you think?
It's certainly possible. Yeah, it's certainly possible. And I think that the truth is that if we were to, as we get back in touch with what it means to have emotional depth and joy and grief and the things that actually retain us as in our humanity, and we find purpose and meaning in that, to me, technology could be an incredible response to the daily grind of surviving. Like it's a lot of work to, and part of the reason people moved away from villaging is that not everybody wants to be a farmer and dig in the dirt and grow food and source water and figure out how you're going to make heat. And these are like real human needs that require a lot of effort. And if technology was put in its place, it would serve those needs very well and give us time to be human. Right now we're sort of in this weird in-between place where the reason technology exists has sort of lost its way in relationship to us. It's sort of driving the ship, as opposed to like, if it could just take care of these things. And I've certainly seen that, actively seen that in certain communities around the world. And it's an amazing thing what happens. The beauty of life just starts to unfold, and you find yourself in a field of love, of what that actually means to live in love and not be disturbed from the act of loving and being in sacred contact with life. And that's a heaven unlike any machine reality. I personally feel like, having experienced enough of it, I just feel like that's so compelling that if you get a taste of that, you're like, oh yeah, that's really the enhancement that I want to feel in this reality, and makes the machine distraction pale in comparison from what it can do for your nervous system and give you a sense of fulfillment. So I think people just need to discover that. Will they discover it? I think that's really, again, not necessarily in the domain of human control, and has to do with some perhaps bigger churnings of our world and our reality that are unfolding in ways that we can't know.
Yeah, and like you touched upon before, I know for me, it took me hitting a kind of rock bottom to start developing these practices and to start just appreciating life more, and you touched upon it before. Maybe humanity, maybe the collective does have to wait until it just feels so shit and it's so full of suffering that it's undeniable we need to shift. We need to do something. So maybe the suffering needs to get that bad. Suffering tends to have that type of spiritual sandpaper that can wake us up. So we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't need to get that bad before we collectively pay attention, but it's a mystery.
Yeah, and I think it's in a process, because we live such a privileged life in the West, of when like our suffering triggers opportunity in the quote unquote underdeveloped parts of the world. Their suffering just creates more suffering. Like they just don't have the resources that we have to turn that into a meaningful opportunity to escape that suffering. And so my sense is that for me, the waking up is, how can I be of service to this world? What can I do from my place of privilege to turn towards those who are in need and be more giving and be more compassionate and be more considerate? And truly, it wouldn't take much of the Western world to do that for a fundamental shift to occur worldwide. And so there is in that perhaps the beginnings of and you see it in a lot of ways, of people who have quite a bit of influence and or quite a bit of capacity to influence, going through that journey of suffering and waking up, and that then can have quite a catalytic effect on the world around them. And it just depends on the privilege to which they're born into.
Yeah. Alex, I want to shift gears a little bit and
Yeah.
just and be a bit of a fan, which I am. I'm a super fan of yours, and
thanks, man.
Joe sends her love for starters on this note.
Great.
And
Thank you.
we often marvel at so many of your creations, so many of your tunes, and they're because we're both pretty picky in what we put in a yoga class, you know, and quite often the playlist is filled with your either Shaman's Dream, like Kerala Dream.
Yeah.
That would be in our top 5 albums. Like what you and Craig Colin created and captured in that album is exquisite. That's often our go-to, because even just playing it from start to finish is like the perfect yoga sound, India, just holy experience, you know? So that and Desert Dwellers and your solo stuff, like it's a huge portfolio of incredible music. So I just want to gush on how you've tapped into something really beautiful with what you create to, and I think I really do feel you're at the cutting edge of how to create music that's both delightful on the senses, that we often put it on when we're, you know, chilling on a Saturday afternoon, or both deep in a yoga class. It's like both. It's sensory, just delicious for any situation, but also just really optimum for sadhana, for just going deep in the yoga practice. So I'd love to hear on your experience of what it's like creating the music. Is it a practice as you create it? Is it do you have a vision for it, or does it happen spontaneously and organically? I'd love to hear your process of creating these really masterpieces,
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much. And just to take that in for a moment and to feel that love coming back for something that was co-created at the time, and just to really honor Craig, now who goes as Sahuna, and Amani from Desert Dwellers. We were really in a rich time of meeting each other on the path and finding a lot of depth in our connection around the healing process and music, and in many ways sort of, you know, I use the word shamanism, but I would say earth-based music practices for music that came from cultures who were very close to their own connection with earth and with spirit, and drawing from all that. And I think the three of us really found each other in that, and there was an incredible upwelling of creativity that came from that. We certainly, and I speak of we because at that time we were so involved in our co-creative process together that a lot of wisdom came out of that experience of really meeting each other and drawing ourselves into this process of how do we show up in service to all these amazing human beings that are wanting to explore their own bodies and be in a sacred movement practice, and, you know, sort of find new contemporized ways to offer up music that would be meaningful to what's happening now, and also tie people into their roots of where these practices come from. So in the early days, you know, there's sort of the initial musical training part of, like, you know, I went to school for music. I studied jazz, classical, ethnic music. I ate, breathed, and slept music for years. And then there was the, like, get down on the pavement and show up in the places where bodies are moving and watch what's happening. I had personal training in with a very amazing yoga teacher here in Canada, where we were doing yoga and music therapy for cancer patients, and he had furniture that had speakers built in, and I would lay a body down and put bass waves in and elements in, and what happened, breath, and see what things really deepened the state of sort of healing that was happening within the body. And then doing that in yoga classes, you know, showing up in the class with instruments, and Craig and I would often put together an ensemble, and we just sort of play with what's actually, if we're really being honest, what's really deepening the practice and what's not. And a lot of putting ideas out, getting real about them, coming back, reflecting, feeling, being in our own felt somatic sense process with the writing, and having a practice ourselves so that we can stay embodied and not just become cerebral about the act of making music. And, there was a technology piece to speak of the usefulness of technology. There was an exploration around the kinds of sounds that you can make only in the digital realm and how to blend those with acoustics that make it so that you don't really know what's acoustic and what's digital. So the mind is not involved in like, is that a kick drum from an 808, or is that an acoustic thing? Like the mind, both in the writing and the listening, should essentially be quiet and not be as involved. And so the practice of composing became a meditative process that over years, and doing it over and over and over and over again. I mean, we must have written 1,000 songs. Just coming up with ideas and iterating them out became a meditative practice of getting quiet. Once the mechanics of the process became known and repeatable, just like mantra, you learn the mantra and then you just sort of drift off into the spaciousness in between the words. And there's certainly a craft of that. And then I would say there's the navigating of, okay, so you've made this music and now what do you do with it? How do you get it out there? How do you get the compensation for it, which fuels more creating of it? And in that, there was just the beauty of being in Los Angeles at the time, where yoga teachers needed what we were creating. And so we had opportunities to write, work for hire. And, thankfully there was just a need, and the need really fueled more of the creating. And there's nothing better than being in the real-time feedback of your creation, and like going to a yoga class and giving a teacher a song and having them put it on for the first time, and you being practicing and watching the other students practice, and just being in the moment of reward for that creation, and then getting paid for that. That's like, wow, amazing. So all of that conspired for a time. And I think then we all got to a point where, okay, we're going to shift gears here a little bit and reorient and go on our separate artistic journeys. And for me now, what it's evolved into, which I feel like I'm very grateful for, is deeply being in the meditation of listening and of being with my body and being with my breath, and allowing spirit to move through me, and being present to that experience, and mindful when I'm getting too involved in the process, and returning back to the meditation as the way of continuing to be a channel. And so, there's certainly an improvisational element to it. And then there's the taking of what comes through in those improvisational moments and the refining of that into song structure. But for me personally, what I'm more fueled by right now in my life is the gifting of that meditation process to other people, and not as much in the production of recordings that people can put on. Like thankfully, like you say, there's such a large library of that that people can really dive into. And now it's more about sitting with smaller groups for me of people and opening up their capacity to be in that meditation and using their voice as a way to experience what it feels like to make direct contact with that.
Beautiful. So that's what you're doing a lot of right now, more of in teacher role, would you say?
Yeah, facilitation of group vocal journeys and it's something that I have a teacher of that I connected with. His name is Amit Carmeli, and my partner Naomi Jason and I do it together. She introduced me to him 4 years ago, and he was at the top of his game in Israel in a huge band, and that all sort of fell apart and gave way to this new offering for him, which was much more about the meditative journey through listening and being in a direct contact with life through breath, and sort of a Sufi and Jewish mystic process combined that is so dear to me, and I feel like has the same feeling of bhav and flavor and sadhana that the recordings did, but it's in real time, and the gift is something that people can really embody and take with them.
Yeah, utilizing the voice in that way is so powerful. We often bring in like the combination of asana, breath work, and voice, and pretty much always it is the usage of the voice that takes it all to another level, so to speak. You know, for example, be watching someone in Hanumanasana, in a long stretch for a period of time, and they're just kind of doing it, and then the breath maybe starts getting a bit grippy, a bit shallow, and then you bring in some voice, and even just the simple like ah sound or something like that, and it takes the experience to another level always, unless one is really resistant and just clenches the jaw even more when inviting the sound, which happens, and I've been there as well. I've been very resistant to sound in the past, you know. But the power of it, even just to shift tension, even just plain and simple physical tension, the effect of letting our voice just roar and letting out some very simple primordial sound is so powerful. And it really does feel like that and breath, really such powerful tools to help us get, in my opinion, or in many people's opinion, the same potency of what we get from plant medicines in our own body, like in the moment. It's incredible what I've witnessed in my own experience and from other people. Like you breathe with enough attention and make sound with a group energy, or not even a group energy, but the ability for that to unlock what we're all looking for in just a moment. The power of sound, it keeps getting revealed to be so powerful. So I love that that's what you're doing right now, huh?
Yeah. And thanks for that reflection. I mean, it's really a beautiful way to see the power of sound and breath and how it can deepen us in asana. It can deepen us into any moment. And you spoke of resistance, and I guess I'm curious for you what perhaps that, if you were to look at it, what that resistance was about, and maybe how you moved through it, just to flip it back.
Yeah. Thank you. I think for starters, on like the most surface level, I thought I had a shit voice. So it's like I got a shit voice. The person up the front there, the teacher or whatever, has a beautiful voice. I'm not even going to try and compare. So there's that comparison game of being insecure. I think that's the most surface level. But then under that, some deeper baggage, you could say. I was brought up practicing Judaism, and I actually hated it as a kid. I was the only Jewish kid at school. When I'd go to synagogue, they'd be chanting these chants, but I could feel the lack of joy in this particular synagogue. I felt as a kid, all I saw was dogma. Well, I wouldn't have called it dogma at the time, but just a lack of joy and a lack of play, and the chants were just getting chanted, and it just felt mechanical. And I think that would be a deeper thing of like, I'm not chanting. I'm not in synagogue again. Let's just jam, you know. So there was that, but I kept revisiting it, even though I had such resistance. I could feel, I think, on a more subtle level, that there's something to this, because I kept showing up, even though I hated it. And then there was a beautiful experience where I just, like, up until this particular point, I'd kind of do it, but in a very minute way. Like there's like really chanting, like really going for it. Then there's like a 1/8 chant. It was like that, like jaw pretty clenched, just kind of whispering it almost, which has power to it. But then I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna give it my all. Like what's there to lose? And it literally felt like this lump in my throat, this kind of just thickness in my throat became like a bubble bursting. And it was like an orgasm. It was a really beautiful mystical experience of, oh, thank God I got rid of this tension in my throat. And it was incredibly liberating. This was after some years of a really strong asana practice and didn't want anything to do with devotion or mantra or anything like that. And then this one moment just shifted it all radically. Yeah, so that's what the resistance would have been. A few different things, but looking back, that's what it felt like.
Beautiful. Wow. Thanks for sharing all that. You know, I'm struck because the last time I was hosting a circle, I was offering people the meditation that we're built as an instrument. You know, our literally from our pelvic bowl and our Muladhara chakra, right at the anus, all the way up. There's this incredible structure that's built, but it doesn't really meet the world until our voice. And this is where it starts to resonate out, and we make contact with the world around us. And so it's such a place where, you know, if we don't feel safe or we don't feel like we belong, this is really the communication point between the world around us and ourselves. And so much can get held in that place. And there's also this wonderful feedback loop with the ears and how we interpret our own voice and what the feeling of all that is. And it's just such a naked point of our humanity. And if we can find freedom, and if we do feel the call, the yearning to keep showing up to this inquiry of what this is, to have a voice, it really does take us to the depths of our being. And I think sounds like you found freedom, and really that's all I want now, is just to find freedom myself over and over again. And I just did a breathwork session today where I found an entirely new level of freedom in my voice, in a feeling of totality within myself. And the vision was like, I have so many creative ideas, and yet I give those up to spirit in just an offering of my love of life. And I'm not attached to the outcome of all these wonderful visions coming through my mind. And it was in the voice that I was expressing the joy of just having creativity. And what a beautiful thing that is to have. And so I think, you know, we can keep coming back to the voice and the breath as a way of continuing to open. And it's also a profound way to grieve. If you ever need to grieve something, there's this sort of moaning, and you know, we don't know how to make the sounds of grief in our culture. And so there's this profound fear of what it means to lose something, because we've lost the art of actually being in the grief process through sound. And I feel like I was just because part of my training was in end of life care, I had an opportunity recently for the first time in a very long time, to go and be with someone who was dying and sing to them. And, you know, my mom asked me afterwards, she said, "What did you sing about?" I was like, I just sang about dying and letting go and allowing the body to feel like it's okay to surrender. And in that, I watched his pain levels decrease and his discomfort decrease. And it's not that I'm medicating him. I'm just reminding his body what it means to be free and let go. And the voice transmits that in real time to the nervous system. And so the more we let go, the more people who receive our voice as a teacher, as a facilitator of healing, get to feel that surrendered nervous system that's okay, no matter what, you know. And I think that, as far as like quote unquote sowing hope, I feel like we need to sow the seeds of it's okay to let go. It's okay to not be in control. And it's okay to let life do its process right now. We are in a dying phase. And will it be reborn into something new? Maybe, maybe not. But if we can just stay with the breath and the sound of it, we'll find freedom. And in that's a beautiful journey to take on.
Oh, yeah. On that similar note, I was reminded of another really beautiful experience. This was at the end of 2012, the auspicious date of December 21. And Joe and I were in this really potent ceremony, and she was also dealing with her mom that was dying of cancer, and she wasn't a big chanter, a similar type opinion and experience of chanting to me. We didn't do much of it, but this particular moment, she just sat up tall and in her sweet little voice said, "Do you mind if I offer a mantra?" And she just belted out, like think like opera, like high pitch, Om Mani Padme Hum, just belted it out. And a lot of people were lying down at this stage, just cooked, and everyone sat up. And it was this powerful moment that she describes as similar to what I was saying of the throat, like, and what you were saying, this tender area of the throat. She described that experience as awakening this confidence to speak her truth. And it was also this mourning over her mom that was dying, and it was a huge experience of allowing this kind of, you could say, next evolution of her potential to awaken. And everything changed after that. Once again, you know, she was able to really show up for her mom. And while she was dying, her go-to mantra was, "All there is love, all there is love, all there is love." Not that she was singing to her as she died. I don't think it quite comes as natural to her yet to like sing in that way. Probably comes very natural to you. But she had a mantra, you know, a mantra of just, all there is love, all there is love, all there is love. And that was the tool to really help her deal with the death and also create a loving field, you could say, for her mom to let go into. And Joe describes this when she did finally let go of the body, when her mom finally died, because she was so deep in the all there is love, she didn't feel any different. Like literally, it didn't feel any different. So it's like the mantra, the breath, the sound can really be that bridge to get deeper in touch with who we truly are and who everyone truly is. And then the death thing that is so, in our culture, tends to be very denied and pushed behind clean, sanitized curtains and all of that. We can be with it, like you described, and be of service, and really, and even just for ourselves, to be with a dying person is an absolute gift. Instead of shying away from it, and it's a gift, you know. And my main teacher is Ram Dass, and that's been a huge chapter of his life as well, to be of service to those dying. And it's a powerful moment.
Yeah, it really truly is. And it's something that, you know, I think we can all look at reclaiming. It's, you know, again, there's, like I heard you speak to when you found that liberation, there was something of an orgasmic moment as well. And just to encapsulate that the places where our culture suffers the most is in death, sexuality, birth, like these places of like our core being. These are like fundamental parts of us. And there is, I think, in a way, a misdirected compassion that's trying to lessen the pain of it all, you know, and that we've generally gotten to ourselves to this place where we have all these tools for distraction and medication. And actually it's sort of perhaps an unaware compassion that's just trying to make it better, you know. But what it's done is it's reduced our contact with reality to the point where we now are afraid of these things that are just a part of life and death, part of being human. And there is something amazing about, quote unquote, finding in that, what that means for us to find our voice in our erotic nature, what that means to allow sound to move through us in our contact with our own eros, and then our contact with death and however it occurs for us, and our contact with life. You know, for me, the act of singing in this way was first taught to me as a deep way to make contact with life on life's terms, to listen to life as life is, to breathe life in as life is, to allow it to be felt at the deepest level. And, you know, it's not like, I mean, I think these are very humble acts to involve ourselves in. And it's courageous as well, because feeling your way into that, there's a lot of discomfort in the way. It's not like it's all a big easy ride into like finding your peace with how life and death work. You know, it takes labor, it takes work, it takes work to die well. That's what I've learned. You know, and you want to have, by seeing what a good death looks like, you start to realize what it means to live your life well, so that you can show up to death's door without regrets and resentments and hidden pains, and the things that make death a horrible experience are all the things you didn't get to do when you were living. So, you know, I feel like the beauty of yoga and the beauty of voice and the beauty of breath and the beauty of all these practices that are coming to our aid right now seem to be about allowing us to feel actually what's going on, so that we can find freedom in that. And I speak for myself from, again, a humble place of being a constant student in watching myself wanting to check out, just needing a distraction for a moment. And yet in this time in my life, I'm the least distracted I've ever been. There's a very few number of distractions I allow myself. I'd rather be in pain. I'd rather be in discomfort, and let that teach me what it is I need to do to feel better in my body every day. And how is it that I can show up in service to life and death in that? And, you know, it's a big piece. And I think in that we all need each other, because we need to look at someone else and be like, dude, we got this, right? Like, this is, you know, we're going to be okay. Right. You know, I mean, like, and that the hardwiring of connection is really one of the deepest comforts of all. It's just knowing that you're not alone. And how do we foster more of that in our world?
Yeah, on the weekend I ran a long format class, workshopy type thing, and we practiced eye gazing, soul gazing, for an extended period, for half an hour, and most of the people had never done it before, and you know, that was a big ask for this particular group. There were some tighter people in there, a fit group, but, you know, to sit for longer than a few minutes still was a big ask. And there was a lot of eye rolling when we went into it, of like, fuck, what am I in for? And all of that, could just kind of cut that with a knife, the dreading of it. But the breakthroughs and the tears of joy and connection and the sharings after it were incredible. And the gratitude, you know, so that I saw that shift, and I see it all the time. I love the exercise, and especially for people that have never done it, like, oh, fuck, what am I in for? The first few minutes you can tell are tough, but then the sharings after it, that connection. And several people shared that not only have they never done that before, but like, fuck, I haven't gazed into my partner's eyes for more than, you know, a couple minutes, if that, to my children's eyes. So it inspired this need for connection and this this joy of connection. It's not you ought to or not you need to. It's like, what a joy it is to connect and just gaze into another person's eyes and pay attention. And back to the technology piece. Like, I feel that even with you now, even though we're looking through a screen, for me it's a kind of meditation of connection. And it's inspiring of like how we can use these tools of technology and really connect beautifully, because it really is a wonder.
It is truly. Yeah, it's an incredible opportunity to do that, you know, and I feel you, and feeling that connection feels really amazing. And here we are in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd love to respect your time, Alex. Is there anything you want to share with the listeners of Yogi Tunes and other projects or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. In brief, so Yogi Tunes was actually born out of this collaboration with Craig Sahuna, Craig Colin, and Amani Friend. And over time, over the years, it's evolved. They ended up really kind of going back to focusing full-time on their music. And I stayed on and sort of held the helm of the company for some time. And what's happening now actually is that my partner Naomi and I have really landed in a place of looking at this together and feeling that the company in its roots needed something of an evolution. And partly is that her and I both have had training as yoga teachers and movement, but our breadth of what we go to for movement meditation is quite wide at this point. She's a medical Qigong instructor. We're both dance facilitators. We have a lot of different tools. We have these singing offerings, So we sat with that for a while and decided to rebrand the company to Intune.
I like that.
And the mission of Intune really is what do you need in yourself each day to get in tune with yourself, to get in tune with the world around you? How can music be a support for that? How can movement be a support for that? How can this music service show up to support not just yoga teachers, but healing arts professionals in a wide variety of disciplines? And so we're launching, really everything is shifting towards this focus of Intune, launching in November, and letting parts of the Yogi Tunes world die and go back to the earth and be creative juice for something else energetically. But it's certainly a streamlining of the service. And she's full-time music curator for the service now, and she's been bringing on some incredible artists and making some amazing sequences that really are great for one of the things we have is just the most epic lovemaking soundtracks ever. So just your sacred erotic time and deep healing needs for sound baths and that kind of thing is just really rich in the service right now. So that's very exciting. And I would say where I've been most active lately is on SoundCloud. So soundcloud.com/Rara Avis music. I'm facilitating large ecstatic dances all the time. So you can find my DJ sets there. You can find a lot of my improvised yoga sets there. You can find more devotional prayer songs and acoustic stuff that I've been sort of meandering about in. And part of what Naomi and I also do in the dance realm is called Downtempo. And that's a version of ecstatic dance that has a little bit more facilitation. And if anybody is ever in the southern BC area, Victoria, Salt Spring Island, and you want to give me a shout out on Facebook, Alex King Harris, KING-HARRIS. You're welcome to come and dance with us. And it's really beautiful, celebratory, tribal church culture where we just get down every week. So I'm really rooted locally right now and really enjoying the opportunity to deepen my roots here and just invite people to come to this part of the world. Victoria, BC, Canada is quite a
Canada.
Magical place. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I lived there for a few years. I lived on the East Coast, but I love Canada. I've got a deep connection there. So we'll try and get up there as well. We'd love to see you.
Yeah,
we'd love to see what's going on.
Anytime. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so thank you so much for the questions and all the love and for just carrying the medicine of the music and for all the ways you've woven it into your life and how much medicine you weave into the lives of others. It really just props right back at you. And thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's been great to connect, Alex. I love your work. It's been a real honor.
Thank you so much. You too.
All the best with everything.
Yeah, blessings.
Yeah. All right, take care.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Bye.